Coming up on Starkville, we'll talk about the life, the times, and the ejections of the late, great Bobby Cox with Mark DeRosa, who played for him with the Atlanta Braves and now works for MLB Network. We have an epic, strange but true segment, as always, and Doug and I will kick around what we've learned about ABS in the first 40 games. Greetings and welcome to Starkville. I'm Jayson Stark. I read about baseball for The Athletic, and I am joined once again by my good friend, writer, substacker, that guy who once got 1,100 hits in the major leagues, and our favorite voice of baseball on ESPN Radio, Doug Glanville. Doug,
yes.
How are you this week, my friend?
I was trying to, simulate like a bat sound. Since you mentioned the hits, maybe it's like if I
do that.
Does that work? Okay, I don't know. I'm trying.
Yeah, let's get our sound effects crew.
Sound effects.
This.
I'm gonna make sure
we have one of those.
I'll be more ready in next week with the sound effects.
Okay.
But I'm doing great. I'm doing great, man. I actually didn't do the games for ESPN Radio this past weekend. So regrouping, obviously I didn't take a red eye, so that's good.
Yeah.
And now I'm, getting ready for this weekend because we got the Mariners. I'm going out to Seattle, and it's a long trip, but it's a lot of fun there. So yeah, we're good, feeling baseball, feeling it.
It's getting to be the thick of the season now. We got a great show this week. Longtime Atlanta Brave Mark DeRosa from MLB Network will join us to help us remember the life, the times, and the ejections of the late, great Bobby Cox. And of course, we have another epic, strange but true segment. Oh, can't wait for this one. But first, Doug, I wrote a column this week on what we've learned from the first 40 games of the season. And one of the most interesting lessons was about how ABS, that's the ball strike challenge system, isn't just calling balls and strikes. It's changing baseball games. Doug, walks are way up. This is the most walks per game in over 25 years. And except for there's a little 2-season span in the PED era where the pitchers were basically terrified of the hitters, 99 to 2000, this would be the most walks we've seen in this sport since 1951. How about that? 75 years, man.
Wow.
The most walks per game in 75 years. And the other thing that we're seeing is also really interesting. It's that the hitters swing the bat less. Hitters are swinging at pitches at what would be the lowest rate over a full season since 2018. And I think you should ask yourself, why is that? And the answer is the zone is smaller. It is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The hitters are starting to figure out where it's smaller, specifically at the top. So they're taking pitches that they used to swing at. And so here we are. Doug, curious what you think. Is this a good trend? More walks, less swings?
I mean, there's always a layer of the business of baseball, recognizing like what do you want the fans to see and what do they enjoy? And part of it is, all right, well, the pitchers have been so dominant. We went through this period of the analytics, the data, the specialization of bullpen, the guys throwing 102 miles an hour, the movement, the shapes of pitches. It was this advantage pitcher. I mean, it was this advantage pitcher. And they still, obviously very hard to hit. But if you're hard to hit, but you're also forcing them in the zone, or you can get on base in other ways that are celebrated, like the walk, now, you're getting a little bit better, or I should say leveler playing field. And so maybe that is the outgrowth of, you have a smaller zone. I think the thing that I'm very curious about is, if you think of it this way, a player now is carrying around a fixed strike zone. Like, this is your zone. It's codified, it's measured, it's what it is. And it doesn't matter if Andy Fletcher is the home plate umpire or, Paul, anybody, right? I was going to give other examples, but Andy Fletcher does it because I've known him since A-ball. So, but it really doesn't matter, like, who's behind the plate. Theoretically, this zone is your zone. So I feel like if I was playing knowing the absoluteness of my zone, it'd be easier to learn it, from, the people that aren't necessarily Gary Sheffield with this like gift for ball strike.
Exactly.
You'd be able to just, and then because it's reinforced every night, it doesn't matter who. So every night I'm like, okay, that's my zone. That's the top. That's the bottom, and it's a little blurry and I can kind of work with that. I think that's, information that's gold for a hitter who's trying to zone up because, you have your strengths, but you also have this zone that's more concrete. It isn't Frank Pulley is the umpire and you get 3 inches outside, or this umpire, you don't have that variance in the same way. And so I'm, once again, I don't know how that's going to reveal itself data wise once you have like a full season, but I'm very interested in, how individually hitters have shown how they adapt and what their sort of, the data is on their swing rates or what's getting called on these hitters, because there's the global and then there's the local or the individual side.
Yeah. So here's the magic word: robotize. The umpires, even the veteran umpires, you're seeing it, are getting more robotized, and the hitters are getting more robotized as they realize what the robot strike zone is. And, baseball knew that this would happen, that the strike zone creates some changes in the way the game is played. And one of the things that the league hoped back when they first started experimenting with ABS was that it might be possible to create some form of the strike zone that somehow produced more balls in play. And they widened it, they made it higher, they made it lower. They tried a lot of different permutations. They could not figure out any definition of the strike zone that would produce more balls in play. And I mean, we're seeing more evidence of that again this year. And you're right, it benefits hitters to have a smaller zone. But if it's giving us more walks and less swinging, it makes me wonder, should the league think about tinkering with the definition of the strike zone before next year, just in some small way that might produce more action? I don't know the answer. I would lean toward yes, but I don't know the answer. What would you say?
I mean, I would wonder, are they not swinging because it's like you're making that decision, well, I can't hit this, right? Or is it strategic around, it's just smaller and I don't have to swing? Are hitters like waking up more disciplined all of a sudden? Like the system comes in and all of a sudden I'm a disciplined hitter? Or is there some element of just like, well, I couldn't hit that. I didn't pick up that 102-mile-an-hour cutter from, Mason Miller.
Why can't both things be true?
They both could be true, right? And I think that's I'd love to understand that, because I'm trying to think as like a hitter, you're like, okay, this zone is smaller, and I kind of know more and more how it's smaller, and now I don't have to expand as much to just in case to hit that 102 at the top of the zone. I mean, and I feel like you need a lot of time and data and seasons probably to see that play out. But I'm just getting in the box for myself. I'd say, well, hey, the zone is smaller and Greg Maddux isn't getting that 6 inches. That's awesome. I don't have to swing at it. And now he has to come with that cutter in, and I don't have to hit that one because he's always throwing out a ball. And, it's like that. Like you do start to marry that with the pattern. I make an analogy of my daughter when she played Little League, her first full season with her brother, talking like 7 years old or so. She figured out that these Little League pitchers, it was past T-ball, they couldn't throw strikes. So she just didn't swing the whole season. She was like 1 for 4 the whole season and walked like 73 times. She's like, I don't have to swing. So you eventually make that conclusion, especially if you're not feeling like you're, I'm not saying you can't hit the guy, but Mason Miller, you're probably better off.
Well, that's exactly right. 98, 99, 100, 103 up here. Right. Can't hit that. So but it's not a strike. So let it go. Don't try to hit it. I would have loved to have watched you because you love the ball up here.
Oh, I did.
Right. But I mean, now there are just totally untouchable permutations of that ball that you used to love to swing at. And I don't know. We see a lot of hitters, their habits die hard, but some of them are dying. And look, it's baseball. And one of the most amazing things about it is always taking on new forms as it evolves. And you know what we're learning? It's not done evolving. Coming up, we're going to talk about Bobby Cox with Mark DeRosa from MLB Network. So as we mentioned a little earlier, the great Bobby Cox left us last week. And like so many people in this sport, I love that guy. So the best thing that we can do is remember the greatest manager of his generation by telling stories about him. And here to help us do that is our good friend from MLB Network, Mark DeRosa. D-Ro, great to see you. Thanks for coming back to Starkville.
Thanks for having me on. It's good to see you guys.
Always a pleasure, man. So before we start telling Bobby Cox stories, I think we have to warn the audience there are way too many Penn guys on the show right now. Glanville went to Penn. D-Ro went to Penn. I went to the Palestra like a billion times. Does that count?
Yeah, it's an honor for me, Jayson, to be on here because Doug was kind of he was the ringleader. You could go play in the Ivy League and still get drafted. He was a first rounder, for God's sake, coming out of the Cape. I followed his story. Yeah, I followed it a lot. So he gave us hope that we weren't just going there for academics. We were also could get after it on the field as well.
Doug, can you confirm you were a ringleader?
Yeah, ringleader. Well, that's an honor, and we were talking about both being from New Jersey too. So we have a lot of ringleaders in New Jersey.
We got a lot of rings. Yeah, let's talk about Bobby Cox for a few minutes, man. Let me start here. D-Ro, do you think that the world truly appreciates the greatness of Bobby Cox? I've got some stats I can give you in a minute, but you played for him for 7 years. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know if necessarily the world appreciates him, but I know this. Everybody who put an Atlanta Braves uniform on, and to my knowledge too, I've learned that the guys putting on a Toronto Blue Jays uniform that played for him speak so glowingly about him. He was, and I say this wholeheartedly, you wanted to win the game because you didn't want to let him down. Like that. That's the God's honest truth. I can remember the games we did lose, which we did lose, which didn't happen with regularity. He would take his lineup card as he was walking up the tunnel, and he would shred it and throw it kind of at his feet. So we had to walk through a ripped up lineup card on our way to the clubhouse, and it was like he's letting us know that he's not happy with the way it went down today, but he always had our backs. When he said open door policy, he meant it. It was kind of an extension, and Doug, maybe you can speak to this. I grew up in a household where my grandfather, my father, it was brutal truth. If you played well, they told you. They asked you to get better at certain things, and if you played bad, you got the honest truth in the car on the ride home. And that was the thing. If you walked into Bobby's office, he was going to have your back as a person to the bitter end, but he was going to be truthful in how you added value to the club and where he saw you.
Yeah, I have a few numbers for you. So I'm sure you know this one. 4th most wins of any manager who ever lived. But here's another one that I dug up. More than 500 games over 500, guys. And the only other managers in history who were 500 games over 500 were John McGraw and Joe McCarthy. Connie Mack managed for 50 years, didn't do that. Bobby managed the Braves for 20 seasons in a row. Just while he was managing one team, all the other National League teams had 106 managers, and the Braves had one. And then, you know this one well, he finished in first place in 15 seasons. That's also more than any manager who ever did it. Doug, you were on those Phillies teams. They were trying to end that streak. How'd that go for you?
It did not go at all. I mean, all we did was stare at the back of the Braves jerseys all the time, chasing these guys. So you knew that he was a tactician as well. And I guess maybe, D-Ro, you can speak to that because I felt like the understanding about pitching and the trust he had in his staff. You think of like Leo rocking away at the pit for the pitching staff. What did you see about how he sort of work with others to be this great manager in terms of using the personnel around him.
Yeah, Doug, I'll start in spring training. I thought he ran, I was a part of 7 other organizations when I left the Braves. I thought he ran the best spring training. And why do I say that? He knew we were going to play late into October, so he was real loose. He had rules: be on time, don't cover up the A, be ready to go. But he was real loose as far as how many at bats you needed, or everything was geared towards getting his pitchers ready. And he would let the position players know, like, I'm going to let my pitchers get ready for the season, and you guys will catch up along the way. I thought he ran an unbelievable, flawless camp. He got guys to laugh a little bit. He'd give you a day off, let you take the family to Disney if he didn't have you in the lineup that day. He just had a great feel for understanding where you were. He got to know everybody on a personal level. So when he said something to you, you took it as constructive criticism. You didn't take it as he was picking on you or anything, because you knew his heart was in the right place and he cared. But yeah, he had a great eye for talent, and he leaned on his stars, man. He trusted a bunch of guys in that lineup and that pitching staff, and he leaned on them to get it done.
I've always loved talking about Bobby with the guys who didn't play a lot, guys like yourself, because he had a way of making guys like you feel like they were as important as Chipper and Glavine and Maddox and Smoltz. And he was doing this as he was not writing your name on the lineup card. Did he do that with you?
Jayson, this man said some of the toughest things I've ever had said to me as a player.
Really?
And I still walked out of his office saying, I'd run through a wall for him. I'm going to go back to 2001. We're in St. Louis. It's the trade deadline. Rafael Furcal's been nicked up for about 6-7 weeks. He subluxed his shoulder in Fenway, and I'm playing every day at short. And Jayson, Doug, I'm killing it. It's as good as this is the best version of me, right? Trade deadline. We're in St. Louis. I'm in the lineup. Next thing I know, lineup comes down, which means we obviously made a move or two. A new lineup's going up. Door opens. Bobby goes, DeRosa, can I see you for a second? I'm like, oh, God, we just traded for a shortstop. So I walk in his office. He's sitting there, and he goes, hey, I wanted Larry Walker. John Sherholtz got us Ray Sanchez. So he always wanted Larry Walker on his team. And they got Ray Sanchez, who was accomplished shortstop, could pick it. And he's like, I just can't see myself going into the postseason with a rookie at shortstop behind 3 Hall of Fame pitchers. And I said, Bobby, I'm hitting 340. I'm playing good D. If you don't think I can get it done now, you're never going to think I can get it done. And he goes, no, I don't think you're ever going to be our everyday guy at shortstop. And I'm like, all right, well, writing's on the wall here. I guess I got to get out of here at some point, right? And he's like, yeah, but I got to know your heart's in it, because if I pinch hit or double switch tonight, or you go into this game, I got to know I can depend on you. I'm like, I got you always. He goes, all right, I just wanted to hit you between the eyes with this and keep it moving. And that's how he was my entire career with them. So I have nothing but love for him. I'm missing terribly. Oh, yeah, he came back up to me.
I remember Eddie.
As I went on in my career, and I'd come back and play the Braves, he would come out during BP. He'd be like, I am so proud of you. I'm so glad you went on and you grinded and met some coaches that unlocked you. I didn't see that necessarily happening for you in a Braves uniform.
Cool. I remember Eddie Perez telling me a story once. He had a bad shoulder and he couldn't throw. That's not a good thing if you're a catcher, right? So one day Bobby said, Eddie, I need to see you. And he thought, I'm getting released. Instead, Bobby calls him in and said, Eddie, I need you more than ever. I need you to teach these young guys what it means to be a major leaguer. You're the most important guy on our team, Eddie. And he said, I walked out of there thinking, oh my God, I can't even play. And he made me feel like I'm the MVP here. But that's a gift that guy had, right?
I think my lasting image of Bobby, or the one I want to remember him by, is when you're getting ready in Turner Field to walk up the steps into the dugout. There was a little room that was off to the side, kind of a makeshift closet that he turned into his little in-between innings kind of side office. And he'd have a TV there. He'd have his feet up with his metal spikes on. He'd have a cigar in his mouth, and he'd be watching NASCAR. And as you were getting ready to go out on the line to get loose, he would just check in with you. He's like, "You ready to go?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm ready to go." He's like, "All right, I'll be up in 10 minutes." And he would watch his race cars go by. And then if the first pitch wasn't a strike, he was on the umpire from pitch one.
Yeah.
Like Jayson said, sitting on the bench, getting to watch him work a dugout, watch him work a game, the relationships he had with each player were different. He knew how to motivate certain guys. I always felt the way he handled Andrew Jones was like the stuff of legend. That's what made him great, right? Here's this kid with crazy tools. The game came easy to him. He knew he was going to make mistakes. He knew at some point he was probably going to have to go out on the field and borderline embarrass him and bring him off the field. But deep down, that was his boy. He called him Andy, not Andrew. He'd be like, "Come on, Andy, you can do it." It sticks with me to this. He's the only one who could get, "Come on, Andy." And it sounded all right that he could get away with it.
Yeah, and Dero, you've had the chance to then be in that manager's chair. And, how much did you tap, Bobby Cox in terms of how you would approach working with players and being in that leadership role?
Yeah, it's funny you say that, Doug, because when I was going through the process, Perry Manassian, who I had as a clubhouse guy in Texas, who's now the GM of the Angels, said, "Well, what kind of manager are you going to be? Are you going to be a top step guy? Or are you going to be interacting with the players? Or where?" And I said, I haven't thought too deep about it. He goes, "Well, just be you." And I always felt like that was some pretty good advice, because watching Bobby from afar, he was always authentic, right? Like, he was always top step. He had the players back to a fault. Like, I could tell a story about Brian McCann getting kicked out of a game for taking a 3-2 pitch that he thought was a ball, and he gets rung. Bobby comes out. Bobby gets rung. They go inside. They rewatch the replay, and Bobby's like, "Brian, that ball is right down the middle. You can't get me kicked out for the..." So he had your back to a fault. And I just think, like, dealing with the 2026 WBC, some tough conversations. Some guys weren't swinging the bats at the time. I remember before the Dominican game having to call Alex Bregman and tell him that we were going to play gunner at third. Those are not easy conversations to have, or how we were going to run our pitching staff. But I always felt, watching Bobby, honesty wins the day. You don't have to agree with it, but this is the way I'm going to run it.
You never did get yourself ejected.
Come in. Got out.
What are these guys here?
Jayson Stark and Doug Glanville.
What's shaking out, Leiter?
Dougie Glanville. Let me tell you something. I can't stand you. This is a guy. Everybody says, "Hey, who's that, Starkey?"
Yeah.
Hey, everybody tells you, "Ooh,
Yeah, what's up, Al?
tough." And they all want you to say like Barry Bonds or Tony Gwynn. I'm like, Doug Glanville. This guy owned me. No, I'm not kidding. I'm not patronizing. You know it, Dougie.
You came up on this show last week because I asked Doug, who's the pitcher that you faced that you thought was the most unhittable? And somehow we got onto Al, right? But
it's always the guy that whooped your ass
more
that
than
says he's unhittable.
That's right. He faced you more than any pitcher.
Yeah,
You're number one.
Number one.
What did I do that I was? Was I tipping stuff? Like, honestly, I'd get Barry Bonds out, I'd get like Tony Gwynn out, and then Doug Glanville goes like 4 for 4. Nothing against Dougie. I know
he was gator arming balls down the third baseline.
Yeah, it was like, well, first, okay, let's start with the Jersey pride here. Okay, that says a lot, right? We got Jersey pride. We got to, we compete with each other, but we're brothers. All right, so that's one. And I think my thing with you is that I learned, first time I faced you in Florida, I was so late and I was hitting balls over the dugout, first base. And I was like, how hard is this guy throwing? So I look up and it's 99. And I'd never seen a lefty with a cutter throwing 99. And I made a decision like, okay, he's going to try to buzzsaw
By the
me
way,
in.
Jayson, cut that off. Cut this little piece off your producer. I'm going to send that to my kid because he thinks I was a thumber my whole life.
So he's throwing so you like that cutter, buzzsaw cutter in. And I realized, like, don't try to keep it fair. Don't try to stay inside it because he'll break your bat. Hit it into the dugout, third base dugout. And eventually, if he leaves one a little bit out, that's the ball down the third base line. And so I just gave up on like trying to, stay inside it. And that was the difference that helped me. I mean,
and then it was
I
a
felt
head
that way
game
with,
because
like,
every time you got up, I was like, I thought you were Babe Ruth. I'm like, oh shit, Doug Glanville.
Well, wait, we were playing in Philadelphia at Citizens Bank Park, and it was like a 2-1 pitch, and like halfway through, you did something where your motion almost like balked and threw this like 78-mile-an-hour changeup, and it looked like you changed your mind halfway through, and the trainer came out. And you were like, no, I'm fine. But it's like you were in the middle of like throwing a certain pitch and you changed it and you're throwing like 78-mile-an-hour BP pitch. I was like, did you get hurt on that pitch? But I feel like you were just trying to make up a pitch.
No, so honestly, that was a thing. Depending on the score, I used to do that. Like I would say, all right, if a guy was owning me, I would take a 2-seamer and literally lob it to just see if, like, I don't know, you take it or you pop it up. And I'm like, I would do that periodically. Of course, depending on the score, you didn't want to give up a big fly. And like, what was that? Yeah. Hey, I want to add something here. And I know D-Ro, and I've been watching, by the way, your interview yesterday with B-Mac and
we talked Bobby Cox.
I want to say one thing about Bobby Cox. I was always against I was always against him, right? When I got to National League, Marlins and Mets. I made the All-Star team first time in my career in 1996. It was in Philly, Jayson, you guys, right? And
was there?
We were told who was going to pitch and who wasn't going to pitch. And I was one of the guys. Glavin wasn't pitching. Maddox wasn't pitching. It's a bunch of guys. And he told me I wasn't going to pitch unless XYZ. I said, okay. So I'm sitting in the bullpen at the Vet. And I knew that was going to happen. The way the game played out, Piazza hit the ball like in the yellow seats and all this other stuff. Bobby Cox called down. Bobby Dews was his bullpen.
Bobby Dews.
And they're calling it, Mark Wohlers is going to close out the game. Bobby says to Bobby Dews, he says, put Leiter on. And I'm sitting there and we're spitting seeds and so all the guys were just, and I pick up the phone, it's Bobby Cox. And I'm like, hey, Bobby. And he's like, hey, Al, do you want to get in this game? And I looked at him, I was like, Bobby, that'd be amazing. I got my family. I grew up in New Jersey. Like, I went to the Vet all the time as a kid. And he goes, all right. Wohlers is going to get the first 2 outs. Get warm. You're getting the last out of the game. Ever since then, every time that I faced those guys, that was in 96, 97, 98, all the way till 05. Every time I saw him, I thanked him up and down. He didn't have to do that. Like, class move.
Class move.
And I loved him forever,
He would walk around and ask everybody, once he knew the division was in place, he would walk around and go, do you have any incentives in your I never had any incentives with that.
Wow.
But I would watch him. I would watch him walk around and say, what do you need? What do you need? What do you need?
Yeah.
And he would make an effort to get them all.
Yeah, Leland used to do that as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, great to see you guys. Sorry to barge in.
I was
going to change right now. I'll keep my clothes on until this goes off.
You made the show.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Oh, tremendous. That's tremendous. So last week we had Mike Napoli's kid on. Okay.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
So we've had Drew Carey's dog on. So what the heck? Wherever this goes, it goes. I think we were about to talk about Bobby Cox' favorite ejection stories. Do you have one?
It's funny. I just watched him get ejected from arguing balls and strikes just a ton and having the players' backs. The one that kind of has gone a little viral on social, I do remember, was and I don't know what was right and what was wrong, but the whole aerial shot of our catcher's box, where our catcher happened to be back there that night, and I guess ours was a little bit bigger than the normal ones.
Yeah.
It was Fernando Lunar making like a spot start behind the dish, and they called a balk or a ball on pitch 1 from Maddox.
I remember this one.
And he came flying out, and the umpire was letter of the law. Your catching box is too big or too small or what have you. I just remember Bobby. I don't think the broadcast crew, I don't think the grounds crew, none of them, I think, got on the plane with us when we went on the road that next trip. You might have to do some research on that, but I do remember him getting
look into that one. Yeah,
We should. Yeah. You know, it's funny. You would think that a guy who got ejected 162 times would have all of these epic rants. He was not Earl Weaver. He wasn't that guy. They were all pretty much the same thing. Although I do love the story that Smoltz always tells of the Brett Boone triple in Cincinnati.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure you were on the team then, right? So
Yep.
First Smoltz gets ejected. Was it Harry Wendelstedt? I think it was Harry Wendelstedt.
It was his
And
son,
Bobby comes. Oh, Hunter.
I believe.
Hunter.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So now Bobby comes out and says to Smoltz, "You're not ejected. Go stand on that mound." So were you, do you remember any of this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Jayson and Doug, if you polled the umpires, even though they probably threw him out handfuls of times, they had massive respect for him. The way he went about it, he knew the game was an entertainment product, but he also knew he had an old school way about him. He knew that the fans enjoyed it. He knew that the players would respond. And it's funny because I went to Texas following my time in Atlanta, and I actually asked Buck Showalter, "You never get kicked out of any games. Why?" And he goes, and he said to me, he goes, "I feel like I'm more important to the team in the dugout than in my office." And I understood that. I said, yeah, but I think the boys would appreciate every once in a while just a, yard sale and go sit upstairs. I mean, just the optics of it from Bobby's point of view, from the player's point of view was, oh, we can't let this guy down because he's willing to just fall on the sword for us every night.
Did you know the ejections were coming? Could you see him coming?
You could sense it. If he was hot, like early, like leadoff hitter, number 2-hole hitter, if there was a tight pitch and he saw a reaction from Maddox or Smoltz or Glanville that they wanted that, yeah, it was usually started boiling the water for him.
Yes, and DeRosa, so you're around this legendary Hall of Famer, obviously, manager, and you probably can tell at the time, like all the wins and W's, and you've been on the other side as a manager with WBC. I'm curious now, in your role, all these years in sports media, on the baseball media side, what have been your takeaways of being a manager and now kind of coming back to it? The challenges of answering those questions. How has it shifted you as an analyst, even?
Oh, a lot. This one was interesting for me, Doug, because in 2023, we went to the finals against Japan, and I dealt with the same pitching guidelines and pitching restrictions and everything that went along with it. And it was like, okay, I just came back to my job. And for whatever reason, this thing had such legs on it that I was a genius bringing Tyler Rogers in against the Dominican. And then, you're a buffoon when you don't get over the top in the final game. I understood the whole lead up to it. I think the biggest thing for me, you have to be willing to put your head on a pillow at night and be okay with the decisions you make. If you start to ask 15 different people, you're going to get 15 different opinions. You have to stand for something and be okay, right, wrong, indifferent. I watch nightly, and we could pick apart managers on a nightly basis for moves they make, but as well as I do, we're not in there. We don't know the conversations they're having with bullpen guys, them telling them my arm's a little cranky or don't use me today. If you could stay away from me, maybe that's the case. We were dealing with that with the teams. We had guidelines on us for the WBC to begin with, and then you're trying to honor the big league clubs for them to allow these guys to come play with us. So there was this whole massaging, and what I realized is like, listen, I'm the guy who's managing. I got to eat all the grenades here. Whatever happens, it's going to lay at my feet. So I've been a little less inclined to question every move that's made on a nightly basis coming back from the WBC.
There was the whole punched our ticket plot
Yeah.
line that blew up on you too. So as you think back
That was
on
the
that
big thing,
now,
Jay.
Yeah. Would you have done anything differently? Said anything differently?
Yeah, 100%. I shouldn't have said that. I think going into that game, outside of, and we knew what we had to get done, but outside of Italy, like run ruling us, our chances of advancing were pretty much in a good spot. So was I speaking a little overconfidently at 9:30 in the morning? Yes. Did anyone, or did I think to address it pregame? No, I didn't, because we knew what we had in store. I think the optics of it just kind of took a downturn because, and I didn't understand this. Goldschmidt was in the lineup. He had earned the right to grab a start. Bryce was 2 or 3 for 15 at the time. It wasn't like I was sitting a super hot player in that moment. Ernie Clement was in the lineup. Gunnar was in the lineup, and PCA was in the lineup. Thank God PCA was in the lineup. He ended up hitting 2 homers. Gunnar went deep too. It was just this total groundswell towards. It just wasn't true. The narrative wasn't true. Then in the middle of that, Bryce comes out and says that the Olympics is a little bit different than the WBC. What people have to understand, when you're born and raised in the United States, winning a World Series is way more important than winning a WBC. When you're born in the Dominican, and you hear our national anthem every day when you go to work, when you have the opportunity to bring all your countrymen onto U.S. soil, hear your national anthem played, of course they're going to react a little bit differently. And it is like this huge want to with their countrymen to represent themselves and win the WBC. At no point their joy is us not in. We were all in. I think if people could have seen the locker room after the Venezuela game, I think they would have a different appreciation for kind of the way these guys wanted to win this thing and the amount of time and effort that went into competing and still with regards to getting them back healthy and understanding that, these are massive stars that are going to help lead their organizations to hopefully a potential postseason run in the World Series. But yeah, that the whole narrative around that thing started to really frustrate me.
Well, D-Rod, do you see? I know it's like always not put it on a billboard per se, but do you have the itch to manage? Like it seems like you. First of all, you're like under a student of Bobby Cox, so that puts you in a qualified position as well. But do you have that taste at some point to really consider that?
It's a tough question, Doug, because I think in the right situation, I would jump at the opportunity to do it. I really do. There is nothing about putting boots back in that dugout and the feeling you get and how much you care and how much it matters and how much you want to see the guys do well and kind of build this chemistry and this bond. So yeah, there's definitely an itch to do it. There's also an itch to watch my 16-year-old son finish out his high school career for the next 2 years and see where he goes. He's a nice little player in Georgia right now, and I'm enjoying the heck out of that. So yeah, the WBC is a blast, man. It's fast and it's awesome, and I loved every second of it. I just hated that some of the shine was kind of taken from the U.S. team by narratives I felt were false. And you know what? Shame on me because I misspoke early and it kind of led to this kind of groundswell of that narrative taking place in the first place.
I know you've got to run, so I just wanted to circle back to Bobby here. Just I love thinking about the what if world. Okay, so here's one for you. What if there was ABS when Bobby Cox managed?
What
would his final? Well, yeah, we have the whole Glavin, Maddox, Smoltz part of that. But what do you think his final ejection total would have been? So I guess we should pick a number somewhere between 1 and 162.
It certainly would have been a lot less. Because I mean, for obvious reasons, but I think he would have found new and inventive ways to get himself chucked out of games. I just think that's who he was. I think that's the way he was raised. I think he was going to have his players back to the bitter end, and that's why. Listen, the one thing that I wanted to get out, because me and B-Mac were talking about this last night. Bobby was this great, awesome gentleman, great manager. But don't get it twisted. It was going to run his way. If you did not fall in line with the way he thought the game should be played and the way you should handle your business, you aren't going to stay there long.
Yeah, he ran some guys out of there. We know who. We know who. And then when they realized that they were on the other side and how life worked on those other teams, they knew how much they screwed up. Am I right?
The way I looked at it is, if you can't play for that man, that's a you problem, not a Bobby or us problem.
Yeah, right. All right, one more what if. What if Bobby Cox had never managed the Braves? Would they have finished first 15 years in a row?
I'll take it a step further. What if he never GM'd the Braves? They don't have Glav, they don't have Chipper, and they don't have Smoltz. So the answer is a hard no.
That's a total no. And,
right?
We started talking about whether he was appreciated enough. I mean, you said something on the air on Monday that you could take a team full of Hall of Famers, and the one guy you'd want to manage them was who?
Is Bobby Cox. You can make that argument. There is no question about it. If you are to define what a perfect manager should be, almost to a fault, it was him. I mean, he knew who his starters were. He knew who his bench guys were. There was no wondering where you stood on his team. He let you know in spring training, and he would adjust on the fly by having periodic meetings with you in his office. But you never got in your car, Doug, at any point and drove home going, oh, I'm getting a Sunday day start tomorrow. If I get 3 hits, I might be in there on Monday. No. You're not going to be in there on Monday.
I get it. Hey, DeRosa, it's always a good day when you stop by Starkville. Look forward to seeing you down the road, man. Thank you so much.
All right, guys.
Yeah, thanks
for
a lot,
having
man,
me.
for
Great
taking the
seeing
time. All right.
Yeah. And thank Leiter.
Yeah,
I will.
Thank Al.
I will.
Strange but true.
All right, you've heard the Strange but True theme song, or whatever the heck that is. You know what that means. It's time for us to look once again at some nutty thing that happened in baseball that made people say, what just happened? Okay. We actually just had this happen a few minutes ago. And this really is the Strange but True thing we're doing this week. But how strange but true is it, Doug, that last week you randomly brought up Al Leiter, and this week Al Leiter just happened to magically appear on the show without being invited. So good.
I summoned, it's like Dungeons and Dragons. The wizard has summoned you.
Yeah. Now let's talk about our actual Strange but True thing. We have to go back more than 2 weeks for this one, but we're doing it because it's so good. This was a game in Texas. The Pirates were in town, and Oneil Cruz of the Pirates did something unbelievable. So let's go back in time and relive it.
Skip Schumacher trying to get that ground ball. Drive to right field, and it's fair. It's way gone. It hits the top of the foul pole. That's a Cruz missile. A blast here in Texas. Oh, brother. Number 7. 422 feet.
It didn't go 422 feet. Here's what it did. So the ball left the bat at 116.9 miles an hour. That in itself is nuts. Now, it it gets more than 100 feet up and then lands on top of the foul pole, which is 92 feet high. That the foul pole is 326 feet from the plate and at 92 feet up. And somehow this ball that he hit dented the top of the foul pole. And I think you were doing a game at the time or something, but you texted me that night. You remember what you said?
Skipping rocks. Did I say something about skipping rocks?
And that you've never seen that before. Now, it has happened a couple of times. People have been sending me, I wrote about it, so people have been sending me clips and references. Marcelo Osuna, who's actually now on Oneil Cruz's team, he did it about 10 years ago, and Melvin Mora did it once. So it has happened, but like, nevertheless, what most people think is that's impossible. And what I think is it just happened. So how possible was that thing that just happened? So I decided I set out on this mission, my latest harebrained mission, to try to find out the odds of doing that. And this time, unlike my last ill-fated quest to do this, I started with AI. And I asked Perplexity, which is the AI search engine, how would I calculate the odds of a home run hitting the top of the foul pole? And so it gave me a couple of what it described as simple equations that I could use. And you know what it made me think? I'm sure you think this all the time, Doug. Oh, wait, I forgot to get my master's degree in physics again this week. Okay. I'm sure you have that happen all the time to you. Am I right?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah. Okay. So AI, that was not helping. This was not going to be a self-service thing. So then I decided to run this past. I only know one baseball physicist in the world. That's our friend, Dr. Meredith Wills. So I reached out to her and I said, hey, I'm trying to calculate the odds of a home run hitting the top of a foul pole. Do you think you could help? And she said, whoa, I don't even know where to start. She said, you really need to consult those NASA engineers who were landing people on the moon. But then she said, the moon landing's probably easier. Okay. So, Doug, I'm going to turn to you. You were an engineering major at Penn. What do you think is easier, going to the moon or going to the top of the foul pole?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to, with the Artemis project, I'm going to say it's easier to go to the moon. We found a way. Well, and the thing that I would add is, let's back up a little bit. The mistake was that the foul pole is not tall enough. All right, let's be real. The foul pole is not tall enough. And since we're talking about the moon, they should build it high enough that it goes to the moon. And then there's no question that it hit it. All right. And then
the odds would be exactly the same. Exactly right.
Absolutely. It'd be like hitting any foul pole. And of course, the echo that goes through the pole to the moon, you might unearth life on the moon from some sort of symbolic vibrations that you've created. So the fact that there's people in the upper deck there, the upper deck, that probably never thought they'd see a baseball in a game, and were like, well, they got this ball skipping off the foul pole. I mean, it would have been really cool to see that from above. But wow, 117 miles, Mach 2.
Yeah, there's a dent in the top of the foul pole.
Dent.
It's so crazy. Hey, did you ever hit a home run that even hit the foul pole? Were you that guy?
I did.
Yeah?
I did.
A little lower?
I hit one of Hideki Arabu when he was pitching with the Expos. And I hit a ball right down the line in Montreal. And it was like, I didn't leave the batter's box. It was like fair or foul. And it hit the pole. And that's the only time. And they had like a netting around it. So it just like, it wasn't like bong, it kind of just, it just rippled in the beauty of like skipping rocks, I guess.
Okay. So all the years you played, you only hit the foul pole anywhere once. This guy hit a ball on top of it.
I mean,
yeah. So
no.
I said to Meredith, to Dr. Wills, it seems to me that if we can fly a plane from Stockholm and have it land at LaGuardia on time, it can't be impossible to hit a homer that lands on top of the foul pole. And so she found this to be faulty logic. And she didn't even mention the part where the plane from Stockholm would actually land at Kennedy and not LaGuardia. Okay. But anyway, she did point out planes have pilots and steering wheels and stuff. And it's really an excellent point. Oneil Cruz didn't have that. What if we gave the hitters steering wheels, Doug? I think that would help. It's a good concept.
I mean, first of all, defensive runs saved and outs above average would go down and plummet because I'd get a bunch of hits if I could steer the ball. I think what would have been more impressive if he landed it on the foul pole. Now we're talking like NASA level stuff. Like it didn't skip it; it just stuck on top and became like an ice cream cone. Then I don't know what our show would literally implode in real time if we actually saw that happen.
So I'm trying to. The ball would have a little parachute on it.
Yeah, just come out and you just float down on top. Have a little rover. And it just stick and put a little glue at the bottom of the baseball. Why would you do that? I have no idea. But to me, that's like a permanent home run. Oneil Cruz just keeps circling the bases. It's ball's in play. It's stuck on the foul pole. I just keep going in my trot. Yeah, just keep going.
Okay, so remember the home run that Kyle Schwarber hit at Wrigley in the playoffs in 2015, and it did it stuck on top of the scoreboard or
scoreboard,
whatever. It was up there for weeks.
Exactly. You just keep trotting, but the umpire's like, do you review that? After further review, the ball's still stuck up there. I don't know what to call.
Next time I see him, I'll have to ask him if he's still trotting. But Oneil Cruz is not still trotting, and that ball is not still up there, but somehow that happened, and this show is way better because it did. So, Doug, just so you know, we never did find an answer to the question of how possible this is, but I did have a reader email me a few days later saying that he had messed around with the formula. He thinks the odds are something like 4 million to 1. So if there's a physicist out there listening to this and wants to give us a more precise estimate of the odds, operators are standing by. Speaking of which, we now have a hotline. Have we mentioned that? And people call it just to prove to you that we will answer your questions on the show. We got a call from Roger in North Carolina. You need to hear what inspired him to call.
Hi, it's Basher Townley from Rocky Mount, North Carolina. I know Doug knows where I am. Anyway, my most unfavorite stat involves pitching. Why is it that a pitcher has to complete 5 innings, not 4 2/3, but 5, to get a credit for a decision, and that a reliever can come in and throw 1/3 inning and get credit for a decision? Why is that?
Great question, right, Doug?
Love it.
So,
True.
I had an item in my column a couple of weeks ago about a pitcher who got a win, even though he faced 0 hitters. You know how that happened? So the 2 outs were picked a runner off third, then the runner on second tried to steal third and got thrown out. So that guy got a win facing no hitters. But a starting pitcher could face like 20 hitters, strike out 10 of them, and still not get a win. So we've got some deep thinking due here. What would you tell Roger?
I think he's on the right track. And, shout out to Rocky Mount, North Carolina, where my mom was raised and born in that area. So appreciate that. I think of it as like position players. I always thought it was weird, like pitchers get wins and position players that did like nothing in that category, which is, I think, wins above replacement. You start to think a little bit differently about the value of each player towards a win. And it seems like it should be almost like shares, because you're not, nobody gets all the win. I mean, come on. So, but I understand like why we do it, but I found that to be fascinating, especially as we've gotten so much further away from, Tom Seaver versus Steve Carlton, mano a mano, 9 innings, you don't really have that culture anymore. So it seems like you start to look at what is a win and who contributed and how, you should actually measure that. So it makes a lot of sense, especially as the starters are just, they're just not going as deep anymore. And the bullpens are probably more critical than ever, if not more critical than the starters, if a team's going to win a ball game. So seems like you'd consider wins a little differently as well.
Yeah. So Roger wanted to know the history of this, I think. There was a committee studied it about 75 years ago. And that's because until something like 1950, official scorers had unchecked powers. They could award the win to anybody they wanted, and chaos could ensue. And now we're back at a time where I think we should bring back max chaos. That's what I would do. When you're the czar of winning, you can decide how it should work. But all I know is Roger called, we answered, and Roger, thank you. Just proof to you all that if you call the Starkville hotline, we might answer whatever is on your mind. Okay, that's going to do it for this week's show. Remember, if you would like to contact us, that is actually possible. You can call us like Roger just did on our brand new Starkville hotline, not to be confused with the extinct old Starkville hotline. The number now is 347-313-8371. You can also email us at starkville@theathletic.com. We do answer your questions. We answer your trivia questions on this show if you call or email us. So let's do that. In the meantime, be sure to like us and subscribe to the Rates and Barrels feed on YouTube. And you should also subscribe wherever you find your podcast if you like what you hear. So, Doug, thanks for playing. Thanks to Mark DeRosa and Al Leiter for visiting us. Thanks to Jayson Pateri for producing us and putting up with us. And thanks to you all for watching and listening. Doug and I will see you soon on Starkville.
Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to hit that subscribe or follow button so you never miss an episode. If you enjoyed it, drop us a like, leave a rating, or sound off in the comments. We'll see you next time.